Hi, I'm Dr. Anthony Everett, and I want to speak with you today at this this Social Entrepreneur um, Conference 2025 with MBA. I'm thankful to be here. I wanted to speak with you for a few minutes about empowering DEIB focused organizations and strategies for sustainable impact with DEIB. So one of the things that's important to know, and it seems like a lot of people in our country don't understand what DEIB stands for. But DEIB is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. That's the focus of that particular acronym. And again, we're focused on empowering DEIB focused organizations so that those organizations are able to be strategic and sustainable in their impact. So, as I said a moment ago, I'm Anthony Everett. My pronouns are he, him, and ours. I serve faith-based justice center leaders and organizations by supporting transformative plans that maximize sustainable social impact. I'm an ordained clergy with the United Methodist Church and the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. In 2022, I assumed the director role of the Salon Project at BSK Theological Seminary, where I teach contextual ministry, as well as a class entitled Prophetic Activism, Religion, and Social Justice. I come to the DEIB space with a background as executive director of several 501c3 nonprofit organizations, including Mission Behind Bars and Beyond, which provides restorative justice circles for justice-involved individuals and boasts of cutting Kentucky's recidivism rate by more than 50%. I've served as vice chair of the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights and a member of the Kentucky Smart on Crime Coalition. I currently serve as chair of the steering committee for the Central Kentucky YMCA Black Achievers and a member of the board of directors of the Kentucky Coalition Against the Death Penalty. Finally, I'm also a member of the Fayette County Public Schools Board of Education Equity Council Committee. So that's some of the work that I do that impacts either directly or indirectly diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, DEIB. Now, I want to take a moment to say that if you are interested in getting the resource guide, you can text SENT 2025 to the number you see here, 55444. Again, you can text SENT 2025 to the number 55444, and you will receive a copy of the resource guide. It also puts you on my mailing list as well. My objectives today is threefold. One, I want to help you to understand what a DEIB focused organization looks like. I want to share some strategies for identifying and support of the same. And I want to provide tools for your meaningful engagement and partnership with DEIB organizations. DEIB organizations are defined by certain characteristics. Their missions and values are centered on equity, inclusion, belonging. Those three things. In fact, that strategic core of DEIB organizations is equity and inclusion. Equality and equity, while often used interchangeably, represent distinct approaches to fairness. Equality means providing everyone with the same resources and opportunities, regardless of their circumstances. Equity, on the other hand, recognizes that people have different needs and circumstances and seeks to provide tailored support to ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. Equality, if I was to define it, focuses on sameness, ensuring everyone is treated the same way and has access to the same resources. An example might be providing all students with the same textbook, regardless of their learning needs. The goal there would be to create a level playing field by treating everyone the same across the board. But equity is a little bit different. It acknowledges that people have different starting points and needs, and it aims to provide targeted support to address those differences. An example might be providing extra tutoring or support to students who are struggling with the material, or providing assistive technology for students with physical disabilities. The goal there is to level the playing field by addressing individual needs and circumstances that ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. Key differences here are three. There's one in focus, there's a second one that's approach, and the third one is outcome. We talk about focus. Equality focuses on sameness, while equity focuses on fairness and addressing individual needs. Equality treats everyone the same, while equity tailors support to specific needs. And in terms of outcome, equality aims for equal outcomes, while equity aims for equal opportunities. In essence, equality is about giving everyone the same thing, while equity is about giving everyone what they need to succeed. Now, understanding DEIB focused organizations, it can be tricky, but I don't think it is all that tricky. I think there are certain markers of authentic DEIB work. One is transparency and accountability. That transparency comes in the fact that an organization or entity, community, whatever, says, we're not addressing the needs of our constituents, all of our constituents, not just some, but all of our constituents. And accountability comes into place when they say, we're actually going to do something about that. That's extremely important. Then another marker is that of inclusive decision-making. Once you've discovered this, what are you going to do about it? Well, it might mean that you bring people to the table who have not been at the table before, who have not been able to address any of the issues in that community, who might have some insight, but just have not been asked to come. So that's one way. But another way also is to bring the table to the people, to make sure that whatever decisions are being made, that the people outside of the organization, outside of the physical space that you are in, but that have some kind of stakeholders, the stakeholders in the game, that they're brought in, and not even brought in, but you come to them and make sure that their voices are heard. That's extremely important in inclusive decision making. Cultural humility and responsiveness is also extremely important when we talk about DEIB focused organizations. Cultural humility means that one culture doesn't fit all. Culture humility says that, hey, maybe I need to humble my cultural resources and the cultural things that I think are important, and look at others and the way that they handle the culture, and how we can work together on making a difference. Responsiveness to that is when we're able to say, we might even push aside some of the things we've done in the past that represent a dominant culture, and let's do something that's not so dominant and something that comes from another cultural identity. Then there's justice and liberation from oppressive systems. This is extremely important in terms of a marker for authentic DEIB work. Right? When we're talking about DEIB, a lot of times we're talking about belonging. And belonging comes in two different ways. There's justice and there's liberation. Justice is one in which you say within a specific system that everything is going to be fair for all who are part of that, no matter who they are. But the liberation part comes into play that says we might just get rid of that particular process or systematic way of doing things and focus in on new ways, the creative ways to be about doing it. That's liberation. When we also talk about DEIB focused organizations, we got to really focus on identifying where we can find them. And so I have some examples here. One is community foundations. Every community has a community foundation. And a lot of times people, individuals have set up accounts there that will support the funding for other organizations, other peoples based on whatever criteria they've set up. And so a lot of times that might come into play with DEIP focused organizations. Then there also are local coalitions of entities, of different organizations that come together. You'll find DEIP focused organizations in those type of scenarios as well. And then there are nonprofit directories that you can look at. Some are online that you can purchase, and some like ProPublica, you could go and look up and see just about any 501c3 organization, what they're doing. You can find out that information from ProPublica. I think it's ProPublica.com that you can look at. What are you looking for? You want to see what is their track record of social impact? How are they moving the needle? How are they making their mark? You also want to look for community testimonials. You know, it's one thing for a corporate head to say, hey, you know, we're doing such a great job in the community and we're making an impact. But when you hear the people in the community saying the same thing, it makes a total difference. It's really adds validity to what the organization is saying they're about. And then also what you want to look for is representation in leadership and programming. Representation comes in all forms, and representation based on the identity of the organization and the identity of the people that they're addressing. Representation could be in a number of different ways. I mean, it could mean that we're talking about people who are Latinx, people who are of African descent, people who are of Asian descent, people who might have a certain cultural identity that they focus in on, people who are part of the non-heteronormative community. It might also be by, that might be focused on non-binary spaces. So you want to look into all those areas and see what type of programming they're doing as well, because that really tells you a whole lot about the organization and how effective they are. So there are different strategies for supporting DEIP organizations. I'm going to touch on four of them. Financial support is one, capacity building is two, amplification via social media marketing is three, and then there's also partnerships, shared power, that's four. So now when we talk about financial support, unrestricted funding is extremely important. A lot of times you can get unrestricted funding through some of the grants that might be local in a specific community. Extremely important because when our organization is able to get unrestricted funding, they're able to do so much more. It doesn't limit them on how their success can. And there are also multi-year commitments. You know, some organizations just need help to get them over, excuse me, over the hump. And so getting over the hump means that they're moving from one level to another, but they need some financial backing, or they need some technical support, or whatever it might be. Multi-year commitments from the resources of people as well as organizations that can do that are extremely important in this case. Speaking of technical assistance, capacity building is extremely important. Organizations a lot of times need technical support, even more so than the financial support, because technical support can help them to be more efficient in what they do. And then there's also leadership development. I'm always reminded never to overlook your source of help. And that source of help might be someone who doesn't have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a doctorate degree, but it might be someone who might just have a GED, and they are able to relate to the impact of what DEIB organizations are doing. That's extremely important to have someone or have people in leadership that understand the whole purpose of the organization and the goals and objectives of the organization and can add to that. Then there's also amplification, which comes in the form of sharing platforms, storytelling, advocacy. All of those things are important. But now social media is the way to do it. And a lot of times using video, such as what we're doing right now, is very powerful in terms of providing the amplification or what I call marketing that is needed for DEIB organizations to be effective. One of the things we also want to look at is partnerships. Partnerships come in the fact that organizations can come together and co-create programs as well as share leadership models. One thing is when I think of partnerships, I think about power mapping. Power mapping is when we're able to say, okay, this is what all of us are trying to achieve. And here are the players that have something that can contribute to whatever that achievement is that we're trying to go for. And so it's extremely important to bring power mapping into play and have those players in the various areas to understand, okay, this is my lane, this is your lane. I might have my lane and I'm only doing this and you're doing this over here. But when we come together, there's a greater synergy that comes about that pushes us over and helps the entities, organizations to be able to make a difference and make a change. So some of the challenges and considerations for DEIB focused organizations is one is avoiding performative allyship, and I like to say co-conspiratorship as well. Allyship and co-conspiratorship is excellent. When other organizations, other people come together to help someone or some entity to help them get over it to the next level to meet their goals or what have you, it's extremely important. It's good. It's good to be able to do that. But organizations and people should not do that just to say, hey, I've done this, I'm making a difference, because what happens then, it becomes one performative to say, hey, look at me, we're meeting the mark in terms of DEI and belonging. And so it's extremely important to get beyond that. Secondly, I would say navigating power dynamics. I mentioned a moment ago about power mapping, where you have a goal that all these organizations are focused on, but the power map says, okay, this is your strength. Power map says this other strength is over here. When you bring it together, there's a greater synergy. Well, when you do this work, sometimes the challenge and consideration is when there's overlapping of entities and what they're trying to accomplish. That the power dynamics becomes a problem. But when we understand that one entity has its goals and objectives, and they're working within that framework, and then there's another entity working within another framework, and there's a greater synergy to have. And so it alleviates the problem of power dynamics. Thirdly, though, is sustainability and mutual benefit. I mentioned a moment ago about sustainability in terms of financing the organization. Sometimes only thing that a person can do is to give financially to an organization. They might not have the skills and the influence to do it, but the organization can do that. And any funding that's provided to the organization to keep it sustainable, keep it running, so that the people who are leading the organization, as well as those who are working in the organization, can focus on that work, and that have to focus in on constantly reaching out for finances, and they become sustainable. Another part of being sustainable, though, is when the organization can say, okay, we're going to go ahead and set up a product or a service, and we're going to provide that to people. We'll get the funding from that and help it to undergird the whole initiative with DEIB. And so I think that's an even more ingenious way of doing it when we're able to take from one entity, set up with one entity, something that's entrepreneurial, a social enterprise, and move those funds into undergirding the actual work of what's making a difference in the number of entities and organizations. So you have allyship, hope, and spiritedship. You have power dynamics, you have sustainability and mutual benefit. All of these are challenges and considerations, but as you move forward, you realize that if you have those things in place, you really don't have too much to worry about. And so with this, I want to finish up with a resource guide. A resource guide, as you can see, has some guiding questions. It has just a plethora of different things here that you can engage in to allow you to be able to even practice this, as well as use it as a resource guide to identify the types of organizations that work. It's a one-page resource. Again, when you text to the number I gave earlier, and I'll show the screen in a moment again, then once you do that, it automatically says, okay, yeah, here is the resource guide. And so the resource guide that I provided has guiding questions. It has traits of the DEIB organization, and it has engagement exercises as well. And so I welcome you to participate in that and take a look. Finally, I'm going to call to action and call you all to be responsible in this sense. I want you to reflect on your current partnerships. See how those partnerships are effective and how those partnerships can be better. Secondly, I want you to use the one page as a guide when you're going through with your partnerships and with other organizations. Use it as a guide. Take a look at it, see if this is possible, how effective this might be. The final is empowering DEIP focused organizations, strategies for sustainable impact. That resource guide you can get again by texting SENT 2025 or SENT 2025. Text that to the number 55444 and you'll get on our list. And just want to thank you all for this opportunity right now.